Good afternoon and welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. During the next 45 minutes or so, we aim to provide you with an in-depth view of our overall DDoS mitigation service, which we have called Managed DDoS Shield. Joining me today during this webinar are Ivan Garia, our product manager, and Gordon Bedzina, our CTO. Who many of you might already know. Ivan will be introducing the topic and will be providing us with some insight on the latest trends in the DDoS space. And Gordon then will do a deep dive into the technical aspects of our DDoS mitigation platform. I will wrap up, providing some detail as to how we are packaging our Managed DDoS Shield service, the available plans and features, and the pricing model. At the end, we hope to have time for some Q&A and look forward to hearing thoughts and feedback and of course answering your queries. So with that, let me hand over to Ivan, who will get us started. Ivan?
Hi, thanks Nick, and good afternoon everyone. Before we start, I know that some of you may already know what a DDoS is, but for the sake of all attendees, especially those who are new to the subject, I'll be going over the topic briefly and provide you with some stats and trends along the way. So, what is a DDoS? DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service, which is an attack on your public-facing services with the aim to bring them to a halt or at least delay the response to your customers, which can cause a bad customer experience. The attacker can achieve this by using a botnet. This is a term used for a group of internet-connected devices which have been compromised, most likely infected by malware, and therefore they are under the control of the attacker. These devices are like mobile desktops, IoT devices, and there are many different type of attacks, many different attack vectors that an attacker can exploit to launch a DDoS attack. But there are three main types of attacks: volumetric, protocol, and application level attacks. Volumetric still remains the most common. It is a flood-based attack using protocols such as UDP, TCP, NTP, and obviously there's many more. The volume of the traffic generated really depends on the size of the botnet, but also on the techniques used, such as reflection or amplification techniques by the attacker to multiply that volume. Volumetric attacks are simply when the attacker oversubscribes or attempts to oversubscribe the victim's bandwidth limit, and they could even possibly affect also the service provider. And due to the size of these attacks, they are easier to detect. Then there are amplification attack, application level attacks, which are normally of lower in volume and usually pose as legitimate traffic, such as HTTP requests, which can, these type of attacks can traverse through the network undetected, especially from mitigation systems such as scrubbing centers. This is where customers will benefit from a multi-tiered mitigation system. BMIT Technologies as a service provider has assisted customers against DDoS attacks well over a decade. And we've seen the attack evolution specifically in volume, duration, and even complexity. To share some experience, back in 2013, we've seen a big rise in attacks due to campaigns against industries such as the iGaming. And back then in 2013 and 2014, for example, the iGaming industry was growing, there was a big hype. So an attack of 60 gig was considered to be quite big back then. And as years passed, we have recorded attacks to the likes of 150 gig, 450 gig, And the biggest yet was on a customer in 2019, which unfortunately was a victim of the Mirai botnet attack. For all those who don't know what a Mirai botnet is a very clever and simple botnet, which basically the attackers scan the internet, they find a lot of IoT devices, and they basically use the default password basically to compromise these devices, and therefore they create a large IoT, a large botnet made of IoT devices. This particular event reached the volume of 900 gig. This was among one of the largest recorded in Europe in 2019. Now, 900 gig is still considered quite a large attack, and it's becoming more common due to the rise in compromised IoT devices, as I explained earlier. New exploited vectors, amplification techniques, and obviously, no thanks to the pandemic, the shift to remote working. Another but more recent high volume attack, nothing really to do with BMIT, but it was on AWS in 2020, and according to public information, the attacker used a CLD AP amplification attack, which was able to reach the volume of 2.3 terabytes per second. Although still possibly not the largest recorded, because right after Google announced that there was an undisclosed attack in 2017, and they reported that basically an attack using multiple vectors and using CLD AP, SMTP, and DNS servers to amplify the attack. It peaked up to 2.5 terabytes per second. So customers may ask, we're not Google or AWS, we're just a very small business. Why should we invest in such protection? And there is quite a simple and straightforward answer. A threat report by our partner NetScout, which basically shows that there was over 10 million attacks in 2020, not leading up to 2020, but in one single year, 10 million attacks, an increase of 20% from 2019. So it's not a matter of size, but actually when, and we have also seen a big increase in multi-vector attacks. The latest report shows a 15-vector attack being the most common in 2020, with a 116% increase from 2019. Now, these attacks may not last long. In fact, from our experience, we have seen a very sharp drop in duration. As you can see from my slide, the average global duration is approximately 40 minutes. But to give you an example, in 2013, we used to have a single vector attack last up to 4 hours, or up to days, you can say. Constant malicious traffic, but compared to recent events, an attack is more likely to last 5 minutes up to a few hours. So these attacks, it's not just the duration, but unfortunately they are being more frequent, and getting more frequent attacks on the victim throughout the day or week, making it more difficult for them to mitigate, or even the provider to assist in mitigating the attack. These short and more frequent attacks can really damage your business and cause a bad customer experience. Let's take an example, the iGaming industry, all right, such as sports betting. During the hype of a promotion or a critical event such as Champions League game. More importantly, live betting, where every second is crucial. The end user is trying to place a bet on a free kick or on a penalty, and the platform is unavailable, and or the user cannot deposit money. That is huge revenue loss right there, and even long-term issues such as customer loss, and brand damage. It takes just 5 minutes, to damage your brand, and it takes years then to repair. So this just not goes, it goes across all industries, not just the iGaming. There's retail, logistics, hospitality, transportation, web presence. To provide these services, online services to end users is more than ever crucial nowadays. So who would want to attack my business? Basically, anyone with an agenda, you have a disgruntled ex-employee, an unsatisfied customer, a competitor. Competition is actually one of the leading attack motivators in 2020. So how are they doing this? How are they launching an attack? They are launching because it's simple and it's cheap. I mean, it takes just €5 a month to launch a DDoS attack. Attackers are becoming more relentless. They're advertising on public forums now, not just the dark web. They are weaponizing, they are productizing DDoS attacks. And funnily enough, they are creating services such as DDoS for hire, DDoS as a service, DDoS on demand, offering 24/7 and the user manual, so that basically any IT illiterate person can launch an attack within 5 minutes. And then they have also platforms to showcase their botnet, how effective they are. So anyone who has access to the dark web can just easily purchase and launch a DDoS attack. And that's how scary it is. Then there is extortion groups, ransomware groups, such as Lazarus Bear Armada, for example. These groups have no real personal agenda. They don't care about your size or your financial situation. They just want your money. They usually target industries or countries. They start off with a very small attack, and then they send you an email telling you that was just a taster, and if you don't pay us or if you don't send us the money, the next attack will be bigger. And they will really hit you where it really hurts. So they're trying to entice you to pay. And that leads me to my conclusion. We as a service provider recommend never pay ransomware. It will only get worse if you do. I mean, if they will continue demanding more money, they will even share your details with other groups, because once you pay, you're tagged as an easy target and you're gonna get attacked more frequently, And at the end of it all, you'll still be attacked. So never pay ransomware. And we're not saying this out of fear. I mean, we've seen it happen throughout this decade. I mean, in practice here at BMIT, a customer would think that they have solved their problem by paying ransomware, but only to realize that they have just made it worse. So the advice is clear: be prepared. And on that note, I will now introduce my colleague, Gordon Bedzina, Chief Technology Officer at BMIT. Gordon is very likely the top DDoS expert in Malta. He has 15 years of experience under his belt in handling DDoS attacks. He will now hopefully take you through how BMIT Technologies protects its customers and provide you with some helpful tips on how to protect your business. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, Gordon.
Thank you, Ivan, for your very generous introduction. Please first let me welcome and thank everyone for choosing to spend time with us. I've been working with BMIT since its very early days, and as you can imagine, I have a lot of first-hand experience with regards to DDoS attacks that I would love to share. We have seen the attacks evolve and grow over the years. This includes the rise and fall of botnets, as Ivan was saying, the introduction of new attack vectors, abuse of protocols, and abuse of software vulnerabilities, and of course, the ever-present phishing attacks. In all this time, one thing has remained a constant, and that is the intention of such an attack to bring down the target website. Most DDoS attacks, vectors, as Ivan was saying, can be categorized into 3 types: volumetric, protocol, and application attacks. We found certain mitigation solutions are more effective than others, 2 specific types. We therefore realized that that the most effective way is a multi-tiered approach. I will be further explaining what we mean by that at a later stage. But for now, it is important to understand that the different tiers work together to deliver a more effective solution, protection. So, early last year, we started working on one of our frequent technology refreshes, But very early on, we realized that we did not want to limit our scope to just a technology refresh. Instead, we wanted to introduce a game changer. We wanted to bring in our vast experience and current technology excellence together into a single solution, into our solution. Together, throughout the whole design process, we kept 4 guiding principles, and these being scalable, adaptive, resilient to failure, and integrated. By scalable, we mean a system that is capable of handling different customers, ranging from the very small who consume as little as a few megabits per second to those who are definitely larger and bigger and consume over a gig of clean traffic. We also wanted the system to be able to handle the slow attacks, which go into direct your application, but also the large volumetric attacks, which can go and can push and reach hundreds of gigabits per second of attack traffic. We want it, of course, and the system to be adaptive, which not only allows us to enable or disable countermeasures as needed, but to also have the ability to analyze traffic on the fly and perform checks on the payload in order to decide if or not to drop the traffic. These rules must also be very flexible and allow various selection criteria. These included, but of course are not limited to the protocol of choice, source and destination IP address, the source and destination port, geolocation, packet size, packet content, and so on. Of course, also we wanted a system which is integrated, and by that we mean a system which is seamlessly built as part of our network, using FlowSpec and BGP for remote trigger black holing and traffic redirection, but to also provide a single multi-tenanted user interface for both detection and mitigation to both us, the admin and the operator, but also you as the customers. And also we wanted it, of course, to be resilient to failure. So throughout the system, it is built on a two-end design, which is pretty much the design methodology we use on all our services, therefore completely avoiding a single point of failure. An equally important element was the selection of the partners that we work with towards building the solution. For us, it is very important that the partners we work with are leaders in the industry. In this case, we have selected to work with Lumen and NetScout. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. So let me start with Lumen. Just as a small comment, maybe you're not aware, Lumen was formerly known as CenturyLink and earlier still Level 3. And it is the largest internet carrier in the world. Although at first glance, you might question the decision of using a DDoS mitigation from a carrier, one must also take note that Lumen has a very mature product, which has been available for a large number of years now, and it's extremely well suited for us for a number of reasons. Primarily among these are their mitigation is network-based and can scale up to very large attacks, therefore being extremely capable of handling those large volumetric attacks. So anything which exceeds 50 gig, it is still a large volumetric attack, and Lumen has the capacity and the breadth to handle that. They have 15 global scrubbing centers spread around the world, which allow mitigation to take place as close as possible to the source. Allowed us to remove the dependency on GRE tunnels that are normally used in a cloud mitigation service. We instead pass the clean traffic over dedicated 10 gig interfaces in Milan and in Frankfurt. This also means we can pass up to 10 gig of clean traffic instead of the 1 gig limitation built in within the GRE. And also, of course, without any impacts on third parties, because these are dedicated interfaces. Allows us to operate in an on-demand or an always-on mode, with control being fully within our hands using just BGP advertisements. Our other key partner, on the other hand, is NetScout, which is, in our opinion, the market leader in the supply of DDoS mitigation appliances. We have been using Arbor products since 2013, and it has been a very positive experience. And we can confidently say that the delivered feature set, functionality, and ease of use are the best in the market. We use NetScout Sightline and NetScout TMS. Sightline provides the detection and the user interface, whilst TMS is the traffic scrubber. So this brings me to the design of the platform. So let me take just a little few moments, to briefly describe our network. A few years ago, we moved away from using local ISPs to purchase our IP connectivity. Instead, we invested and built our own private network, which links our 4 sites together. So we have the 2 data centers on the island, which you are aware, one is in Handa and the other one is in Smart City. But we also have points of presence in Milan and in Frankfurt. And these are used to procure also the IP connectivity from tier 1 carriers directly within Milan and in Frankfurt. In fact, at both we purchase IP from Lumen and IP from Telia carrier. So over the years, we have come to understand that the best way to mitigate an attack, and this is where I go back to the multi-tiered, is what we refer to as the multi-tiered approach. With this in mind, we have structured our solution into 3 key distinct elements, which are equally important and must work together in harmony in order to protect the infrastructure. So let us follow the traffic through the mitigation layers under an attack scenario. So after activating the system, the traffic will first be diverted to our cloud-based mitigation. This is the Lumen product, of course. So here, Lumen will be filtering the volumetric attack. Usually, we do not keep the cloud-based mitigation in a very aggressive mode because we want to minimize the misidentification of clean traffic. The more aggressive it is, the more clean traffic might be mistaken as malicious traffic and dropped, and that's going to affect the service as a whole, sort of. And that's why we keep it not very aggressive, but still aggressive enough to drop a good 95%, if not more, of the high volume attack. So we want the traffic the high volume volumetric to be stopped there. Once traffic passes from the Lumen scrubbers, it is delivered to both our POPs in Milan and in Frankfurt via the dedicated 10 gig interfaces, which I mentioned earlier. It is worth noting, of course, that usually at this stage, the traffic might still have noticeable number of malicious traffic, and it is where we direct the traffic there to our edge scrubbers. These are the NetScout TMS devices we had mentioned earlier, and their main purpose is to perform further filtering of the traffic and to handle the state exhaustion attack, protocol attacks, and also an element of application layer attacks. Here we perform traffic analysis and filtering based on rules which were created earlier. Upon passing from the edge scrubbers, it will then be delivered to the final destination, being the enterprise. It is here where we strongly recommend that the customer looks at his infrastructure and, if required, invests in fortifying it. We have seen many times, unfortunately, where small application layer attacks break the web server or the backend database. We have also seen incorrectly sized firewalls at the enterprise bulking under a pressure of a few thousand packets per second. The enterprise infrastructure must be resilient, and must be capable to handling stress. You will never get a DDoS mitigation which is 100% effective. So there will always be, because you need to walk a fine line between the aggressiveness of the mitigation and the non-aggressive in order to drop as much of the malicious traffic, but it can never be 100%. So that's why we stress that the enterprise is a key element here. Finally, for us also, it's very important to note that one of the attack vectors is SSL traffic. And while we do employ various methods to identify and drop malicious traffic, malicious SSL traffic, it is challenging when, of course, we do not have the key and therefore no ability to look inside the actual packet themselves. This means that while we are able to successfully identify most malicious traffic, the SSL one, of course, there will always be a small amount filtering through. We never, and this is a very clear statement, we will never ask for your SSL key. Of course, you must understand that this is done from a data protection point of view. We instead rely on the enterprise to perform the final layer of filtering. On this subject, I would like to briefly mention that if you are not sure on your current readiness, do not worry too much. We are ready to help you in reviewing your current systems, your current infrastructure, and give you recommendations on what, if any, improvements are necessary. There might not be needed any, but it's important to be ready and it's important to be prepared. Also, in the coming months, we will be launching a new product which is designed to sit within the enterprise in order to perform the final layer of the mitigation. So this takes me to the portal. As mentioned earlier, we wanted a single portal, a single interface, for the monitoring and management of the DDoS platform. This portal, which gives you direct access and direct control. It allows you to monitor your real-time traffic, which is extracted from our routers and does not depend on the mitigation system. So you will always have a view of what kind of traffic and what is passing towards your infrastructure. The portal also allows our customers to, if need, activate and deactivate our edge mitigation, and also enable, disable, or modify the countermeasures active at that point in time. This gives full independent control to our customers. This does not mean we will not help. So I wanted to make this very clear. It just merely provides the ability to those customers who want, more control. Otherwise, we are still there and it will still be managed from our techs, by our techs. For many, the act of protecting yourself against the DDoS attack might seem to be a daunting task, but please do not be dismayed because we are there to help. We provide a scalable product which grows with your needs. It starts small with you and grows as you become larger. We have the skills, as I already said. We've been handling with DDoS attacks for over 18 years now in total. So there's been an evolution, a lot of technology changes, but it also shows our commitment, So we have the skills and the experience to help you in the configuration and as you go along, of course. So it's not just in the first step initially, but also as the relationship evolves. We can also advise on any possible weak spots that lie or might lie more than anything else within your infrastructure. We will also explain the pros and cons of an always-on or an on-demand operation, and therefore help you make the best decision that best suits you. And of course, we are available 24/7. DDoSes have no nights, no weekends, no public holidays. In fact, if I look back, most of the DDoS attacks tend to spike and start during a Friday and then will spike during the weekend. And as Ivan was saying, they are short, but we've had customers who've been attacked continuously for weeks at end sometimes. So although they are short and then come again. It's a bit of a game, unfortunately. So finally, this is a very important thought in our hand, and to be honest with you, if we go towards history, it's proven that the man who is prepared has his battle half fought. I would say half won also, So, and a point that is not stressed enough, and Ivan was mentioning this, the real question is not if you will be attacked. There are no small enough customers or large enough customers which can dictate if you are attacked or not attacked. In reality, just to remind you of a number Ivan brought earlier, in 2020 there were in excess of 10 million attacks. So the probability is actually, I think it's a fact in our opinion that it's not a when, it's not an if you are attacked, but it is a when you will be attacked, unfortunately. So it is therefore very important that you take this risk very seriously and do whatever you can to be ready. These are not a lot of steps you need to do, but they are very important, So first, you cannot do it alone. We're talking high volumetric attacks. I'm sure no one has those hundreds of gigs idling around in order to use them, maybe if a high volumetric attack comes your way. So you need the help of expert, and you need the help of products which are designed to help you in these situations. Learn your traffic pattern. So what services are you running on the internet? Is the DNS within your infrastructure, or you're using an external DNS server? What DNS service you're using? It's web, what application, what is running on your setup? You need to know this. You need to know who your key partners are. So, for example, if you're a gaming company and, of course, you're using an external payment gateway, you need to know that payment, who is that payment gateway, but more importantly, by who is what IP address is, what traffic is passing from you to the payment gateway. Learn the geolocation of your customers. Are your customers European? And if so, during an attack, can you block Asian or US traffic? Should the system be set up in an always-on mode or an on-demand mode? These steps, can make a difference between being down or staying online. So for us, it is very important. I think also for you, of course. I hope you have found this presentation informative. And now I would like to pass you back to Nick, who will provide an overview of the plans and wrap up.
I started off realizing that I was on mute. So as they've been saying, it's the most commonly used term during the pandemic. So first of all, I wanted to thank Gordon and Ivan for those insightful details. And as I said during my introduction, the purpose of the last part of my presentation is to provide a bit more details in terms of how we are packaging our managed DDoS Shield product and how we are offering it to customers in terms of pricing. But before I go there, I wanted to summarize some of the core benefits, which during the previous presentations, Ivan and Gordon in different ways have already highlighted. So first of all, our solution is multi-tiered. This approach enables us to protect customers against a wide array of attacks, including both the volumetric as well as the application layer type of attacks. Secondly, as both my colleagues have already mentioned, we have been helping customers mitigate DDoS attacks for more than 15 years. And this has seen us also during this time handle some of the largest attacks, at least, that have targeted locally based customers. In some cases, even when other worldwide mitigation providers suffered. What's more, our solution is deployed using market-leading technologies and in partnership with market leaders in their respective areas. And this enables us then to draw into additional expertise and capabilities if and when needed. A third benefit, as with all our other critical systems, as well as our network infrastructure, we monitor network activity 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. And this ensures that we can respond rapidly to an attack. And finally, as I will be shortly discussing, we have packaged managed DDoS Shield into different plans with different features and different price points so as to meet the individual needs of our customers. So let me start by explaining our plans and the associated features. Essentially, managed DDoS Shield comes in 3 plans. Our entry-level plan is the Light plan, and this provides a basic set of features, including 24/7 monitoring, detection and response, access to the network protection service, and the ability for black holing when attacks grow out of hand. Our standard plan adds to these features the ability for customers to have their own custom profile, provides them access even to the real-time dashboards, as well as active attack management, during which our engineering team is able to perform real-time fine-tuning and implement countermeasures to ensure effective mitigation of the attack. Our third plan is the advanced plan. This is our all-inclusive plan, and in addition to the capabilities offered in the other 2 plans, provides 2 key features. The first is always-on protection, and now with always-on protection, your traffic can continuously pass through our cloud-based as well as our edge-based mitigation platform on a continuous basis, and this allows the automatic blocking of malicious traffic. Unlike other always-on services, there's no requirement for BGP peering or GRE tunneling. The second feature available in the advanced plan is the ability to initiate activation of the edge mechanism. This feature enables you to activate or deactivate edge-based mitigation from within the customer portal, as Gordon mentioned during his presentation. And this will route inbound traffic onto our scrubbers, from where countermeasures can then be switched on or switched off. Now, the pricing models for the 3 plans are also slightly different. So the Light plan is included. The features offered in the Light plan are included with our standard IP connectivity service at no additional cost. There is, however, a per event charge whenever DDoS mitigation is activated. The features available in the standard plan are accessible through a monthly fee, a low monthly fee. And then once again, we also apply the concept of a per event charge whenever a DDoS attack is mitigated. Because of the always on and all-inclusive nature of the advanced plan, pricing for the advanced service is based simply on a monthly fee. Let me explain briefly what the concept of a mitigation event is. And this is probably best explained using a graphic. When traffic starts to escalate and it is determined that a DDoS attack episode starts, mitigation is usually activated, right? And that signals the beginning of an event. During the course of the attack, mitigation is obviously ongoing. Countermeasures are being applied. Once the malicious traffic is pretty much stopped, we initiate what we call a cool-off period, and this is basically a period of time whereby we see clean traffic being passed through. At the end of this cool-off period, we switch off mitigation, and that is when we consider an event to stop. So that explains our plans and our pricing, and brings us to the end of our presentation, and moves us into the last part, which is Q&A. So with that, I open the floor to questions. I can see we've already received a few questions, which myself, Ivan, or Gordon can start to address. So I will start with the first one. So one of the questions I've just addressed, which is what is an event and when do we get charged for it, right? As I just explained, an event starts when mitigation is activated and ends after a cool-off period, which is a period of time after which us together with the customer are happy that clean traffic has been persisting through the solution. Another question, which perhaps I can defer to Ivan, is, I have a number of servers on your cloud platform. Can I protect those too?
Yes, Nick. Basically, we can protect anything which is under our network, all right, under our connectivity. So any cloud services that has attached our BMIT connectivity services can be protected. With regards to cloud, other public cloud providers, which basically are not completely hosted in our data center or in Malta, or don't have any bandwidth connectivity from us, we are not able to protect with this mitigation system, but do get in touch because we might have other solutions in place.
Thank you, Ivan. Another question, perhaps Gordon can explain.
The infrastructure one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so one question was, first of all, I think they were a bit tight. So on cloud or not services hosted in Malta, I think Ivan clearly explained earlier that the system depends on, it's based on the way we route our traffic. So unfortunately, the system as is can only protect those customers or those clients which make use of our bandwidth solution. So how it is connected, as we explained earlier, and also as Nick was saying earlier, it is completely transparent for you as the end customer how you are connected. So, for example, if you go into a third party DDoS cloud provision, one of the requirements if you're going for a direct routed solution is you need to be able to do a BGP, you need to bring in a GRE tunnel, you need at least a /24 IPv4 network. Those requirements are not there, so we can even protect a single IP address from our zone. So if it is IPs which either we route on behalf of the customer or are part of our allocation, so when we give a customer /29 or bigger, whatever that size can be, then it can fully avail itself of all the DDoS services, starting from the standard or the basic, up to the advanced, and there is no specific requirements to the end customer. So once he connects to us, it's a normal connection, and then we will take care of everything that needs to be done from cloud-based mitigation to our edge-based mitigation. So I think this is very important for us to say we can go as focused or as small as a single IP address. How are we connected from, as I already said, there are direct physical interfaces to our IP providers, and we also have direct physical interfaces to our cloud-based mitigation, both in Milan and in Frankfurt, and that is the 2N resiliency and redundancy that we were mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Gordon. Whilst you're at it, there's another question perhaps that I can ask you. So what if your solution doesn't break the DDoS attack?
Okay. It is and always a bit of a game, unfortunately, which needs to be played. Will it break the DDoS attack? Let's be very honest here and truthfully. And yes, most of the time, and it is the vast majority of the time, the DDoS attack is managed, and it is managed well. During the attack, there might be some filtering through of some traffic, and that is because we try not to be too aggressive. You know, the more aggressive we are, the more false negatives we're going to hit. You know, and the more clean traffic gets dropped, and and it is a fine line. So we already mentioned there are multi-vectors, so we're going to see vectors coming in and going out. You know, the average is I think it was 18 different vectors mentioned by Ivan, and you see different attack types, different vectors switched in and changes. So as you go along during an attack, especially if it is a couple of hours of attack, you're going to see a variation. The more effective you are, the more you're going to see the variations taking place. You know, when earlier we went, look, the easiest are the volumetric UDP, like for example, a DNS amplification attack. That easy, you know, it's very easily handled. So you get a very large volume, and it will break those who do not invest into a cloud-based mitigation, because no one can handle at 200, which is the average that we see to today. You know, the average attack, an average large attack is between 100 and 200 gig of traffic. So no one can handle that. No one has the amount of bandwidth readily available to take it. Then when you go into the small attacks, then it becomes a bit more tricky. So when you get to the application layer attacks, certain SSL types attacks, SIM floods attacks, you know, no attack will break us, but there might be attacks, and this is where we are very, very strong, opinionated on it, you know, that the enterprise must also have a certain level of resiliency with it, because in order to keep operational, you need to leave some filtering through, and the enterprise must be able to protect itself against that. Now, mentioned earlier, there's a new product which we are working on, and it should be launched in the upcoming months, which is going to sit literally within the enterprise. So it will be able to analyze the SSL traffic, but also mitigate the small filtering through, the small amount of traffic that can filter through. So would be a third gate protecting the infrastructure. I don't know if I really answered. You know, if there is an attack and it really breaks it, I think the only option that remains is black holing, literally. You know, it is our last resort, and you know, we do not want to do it, and we are never happy to do it. But you need to understand that the final thing is the protection of the infrastructure per se. So if there is an attack, of course there is an if and underlined and bold, and everything else has failed, that is the last bulwark, which is a black hole. Black holing means you're putting down that IP, but you have everything else still working.
Thank you, Gordon. We're running out of time, so perhaps I'll take the last question. We'll try to capture the remainder of the questions and answer them offline, and maybe I can ask Ivan to address this last one. Ivan, does mitigation require manual intervention from your side?
So basically, when we have, like Gordon was saying, we have a multi-tiered mitigation system. With regards to Lumen, for example, the cloud-based mitigation, we obviously, our core gets notified that there is a malicious, we have alerts and configurations, and that we have a malicious attack going on. And therefore, yes, there might be some manual intervention required to change unless the customer is always on. There will be a manual intervention to reroute the customer towards the cloud-based mitigation. And there's also manual intervention required if there needs to be tweaks within on the edge or tweaks and countermeasures when it comes to the edge-based mitigation. I don't know, maybe Gordon, you want to add anything on that, unless I covered anything, but yes, there will be some sort of manual intervention unless we are on the always on, unless you are on the always on plan on and configured as always on at that at that point in time.
No, you explained it perfectly. If you are always on, the traffic is already passing through all the mitigation layers, so there is no intervention required, except there might be intervention required with certain fine-tuning and playing with the countermeasures, if you know what I mean, or reacting to the attack. If it is an on-demand, our edge scrubbers, we can actually enable auto mitigation, but the lumen element side of it, because of certain complexities involved, it has been left to be manually triggered. So it is not playing with configuration, but it is a manual trigger.
Thank you, guys. So as I said, there are some more questions which we'd be more than interested in replying to. Unfortunately, however, we're running out of time. So we'll take stock of them and be able to get back offline. Please do reach out to us. In follow-up to this webinar, we will be sending out, we have recorded it, so we'll be sending it out for on-demand consumption, right? And we will be reaching out to all attendees to see if there's a follow-up discussion that can be had. In the meantime, please do reach out to us if you have more urgent questions or would like to know more about our services and our solutions. Thank you, and thank you, Gordon, and thank you, Eva.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.